Hello and welcome to episode 1 entitled Microplastics. Now that they've found microplastics in our brains, this is a comprehensive guide of how to avoid microplastics and how to reduce your exposure, what things you can swap out easily, and where do microplastics even come from? Why do we have them in our bodies? I have a lot of information that I'm going to give you. I made all my notes in my recycled paper notebook from my small business, and this is from recycled plastic bottles. I have different ones, but this one is whatever you say grows. So mindfulness. To introduce myself, I'm Sophia. I'm a psychology student, and this is my podcast, Vervie, actually sustainable and healthy. And I have my own little small microplastic-free clothing company. But we're going to talk about that later. So microplastics, how do they get into our body and where do they come from? I should hold it like this so you can't see my notes. So there's a lot of places that microplastics come into our bodies because we've kind of made plastic everything. But one of the things that I think people don't really think about, or none of these things, is personal care products. So things like skincare products, anything you put on your skin, because our skin is our largest organ, but it's not a complete barrier. So what you put on your skin does go into your body and into your bloodstream. And so sunscreen as well, and lip products. Now, in the second part of this episode, I'm going to get into how you can avoid microplastics and reduce your exposure. But right now, I'm just going to tell you how do they even get into our body. So lip products, I think, fact check this, but I read the statistic that the average woman eats 3.7 kilograms of lipstick in her life. So you can imagine you're eating whatever is on your lips. So lip products. The other thing is toothpaste. Like, you literally put that on your gums, which is like a what is that called in English? A Schleimhaut, which is like very absorbent, right? Oh, I had another idea. I need to write another one down. Okay, and then one thing that I didn't really think about is your toothbrush. So usually your toothbrush, like the brush itself, is like made of plastic, right? And the head and everything is in your mouth all of the time and made of plastic. And how you release microplastics from plastic is if you have abrasion, and when you're brushing, that's literally what you're doing. So you're releasing microplastics into your mouth and then you're ingesting them. Yay. So I'll talk to you later about how to reduce that, hopefully. Another thing is things that you suck on. So baby products, how babies have what are those things called? Pacifiers? Those dummies, those things that they put in their mouth and then they suck on. In that regard, straws, if you're sucking on a plastic straw, ooh. Silicone. Ooh. Need to say more about that. So I think a lot of people don't realize that silicone is plastic. So if you have silicone straws, you're sucking on plastic. If you're using silicone baking sheets, that's plastic. You're baking your food in plastic. And the other thing with plastic is that if you heat it, if it becomes warm, it releases, I think it was millions of particles of microplastics. So that is another major way. This is the evidence-based thing. The major way that you release microplastics and ingest them is if you're microwaving plastic containers and with your food in it, and then you're eating it, because that releases, I think it was millions of particles of microplastics into your food. Same thing if you're baking with like silicone baking sheets, or if you're using like silicone spatulas or like things like that. That's all silicone is plastic. I didn't realize that. And then same way, oh my gosh, see, I have another idea. Oh my gosh, more ideas. See, I always think, the thing about this podcast, I think, is all of this stuff is stuff that I know, but it's really normal to me. But I realize that it's interesting knowledge, so I always try to push myself to share it. Because the other thing that I was thinking of is silicone that you put in your body, like breast implants. That's literally, you're putting plastic into your body. Now the same if you're doing like any other types of implants, or if you're getting like plastic in your mouth, like fillings or like braces, that's plastic as well. And then again, like if you're putting plastic in your body, like literally. So menstrual cups, they're usually made of silicone, which is plastic, or like menstrual discs. And then also tampons, which you would think, but they're made of cotton. Well, they're usually, like, research has shown that they always contain plastic as well. So I will get into, I'll write that down. In part 2, I'll tell you how to reduce that. Your exposure to microplastics in that regard. One sec. Okay, I was getting way too warm. So, where was I? We were talking about menstrual products. Okay. Same thing with pads. Those are usually made of plastic as well, because they're supposed to be like leak proof, right? Oh my gosh, period underwear. Even worse, that's always made out of plastic. Because otherwise it's not leak proof. But also there's other things about period underwear. We should talk about that in another episode. I should do an episode about period products. That's a great idea. Let me write that down. Okay. Then in that line, underwear. Most underwear is made... Ooh. I'm gonna have to make sure... Oh, this is dragging down my cleavage. That's not good. Okay, so underwear, because most of them are made of like synthetic materials, so like polyester, usually polyester. And elastane is also a synthetic fiber, so that releases microplastics as well. And it is very challenging to find underwear that is 100% natural fibers, because then it would have to be 100% cotton and no elastane. And usually if it's like lace, for example, that's always like polyester and synthetic. And again, kind of like with your mouth, that's like a really absorbent, your gums, right? Well, it's the same with your vagina. Like that's super absorbent, so we don't want plastic down there. Then speaking of mouths, chewing gum, oh my gosh, condoms. Like, oh my gosh. A lot of condoms are made of like plastic, and then they have coating. Oh my god. And then toys. Oh my gosh. So many things. Toys, a lot of those are made, maybe all, a lot of those are made out of plastic or made out of silicone, which is plastic. And then water. Another idea. Water. So if we're drinking from a plastic cup, then the plastic from the cup is getting into our water and we're drinking that plastic. They've tested like microplastics and like water bottles, and that was really, really, really bad. That was like hundreds of thousands of particles, if I remember correctly, in one water bottle, because it's made of plastic, and so the microplastic is going into your drinking water and then you're drinking it. It's even worse if you let the bottle stand out in the sun and it like gets warm, and then it releases even more microplastics. And obviously, like I said, if you like microwave in a plastic container, or if you use, you know how rice sometimes comes in those like plastic bags that you're supposed to cook it in? Microplastic central. And then there's also like cooking pans that have like plastic coating. So you have to, I'll talk about that later, how you can reduce your exposure in that way. And then the other thing is like clothing, like that you, like not underwear, because your skin absorbs microplastics, we found out. So like any synthetic clothing, like these literally have, they say microplastic free on them, because these joggers are from my small business, Vervie, and they're made from 100% certified organic cotton. So no polyester, no elastane, and they're super, super soft and comfortable, and have extremely deep pockets because we're feminist out here. And women deserve pockets. So clothing, but then also secondhand, basically. So when you're washing your clothes that are made out of polyester and acrylic fabrics and like synthetic fibers like elastane and whatever, when you're washing those clothes, it's like we talked about abrasion, right? So where's my bookmark? Made out of recycled plastic bottles. I don't wash it though, so it's good. But so when you're washing your clothes, it's like tumbling all the time, right? And that's abrasion. So you're releasing microplastic into the water. And then our water systems are not equipped to handle that, so they can't filter out microplastics. So then it ends up in our oceans, and then it ends up in the fish and the animals in the ocean, and then we eat that, and then it ends up in our drinking water, because where does our drinking water come from, right? And food is the other thing. So right, when we're eating fish, but also when it rains, then the water is full of microplastic because we've introduced that into the cycle. And so then the soil is full of microplastics, and then our crops that we grow, and then the food that we eat, and the food that we feed the animals that other people eat. I don't eat animals, but if you eat them, then they have plastic and microplastics in them as well, and then you're eating that. So that's the secondhand like microplastics, which can really accumulate as well. And yeah, I think we got through all of the ways that you... Oh no, we didn't. So when you dry your clothes, tumble drying, that releases microplastics into the fucking air. Which is great, because then we breathe in the microplastics. Yay. And you know, we also breathe in the microplastics from our clothing, because abrasion, again, so if we're wearing a lot of like synthetic clothing and we're like wearing it and doing stuff with it and stuff, we release microplastics into the air and then we breathe it in. Isn't that great? So wear microplastic free clothing. Okay, so this is part 2, how to reduce your exposure to microplastics. And there's actually a lot of things that we can do, and some of them are very easy. Some of them are probably things you already do, and now you know that they're really great and you should do it more. So one of the things is water bottles, like I said, that's one of the really well researched things, is that you consume so many, like hundreds of thousands of particles of microplastics in one bottle of water. So that's why as soon as I found that out, I made stainless steel water bottles with my small business. And I literally, like on my sweatpants, I put the print like microplastic free on them. Because we want our water to be microplastic free, right? So same with, instead of drinking out of plastic cups, paper cups oftentimes have a plastic lining, for fuck's sake. So we have to make sure there are paper cups, but you have to like especially seek them out that don't have a plastic lining, but always assume they have plastic lining. Like any like paper, like throwaway plates and stuff, plastic coating. So one thing I hadn't pointed out yet is cutting boards. Like in the kitchen, one of the very common ways of getting plastic in your food is, I've never understood people who do this, but if you like, because I feel like it's so obvious, but if you have a plastic cutting board and you're cutting food on it, you can literally see like the cut marks in the plastic, right? Where is that plastic going? Into your food and then into your body. So never ever ever use plastic cutting boards. Always use like wooden cutting boards or something like that, or like bamboo, you know, something natural fibers, because we don't want plastic in our foods. And then the other thing is like pans with plastic coating. So the way that you would avoid that is to do cast iron like pans, and that are just completely like metal. And then plastic or like silicone spatulas, you can do wooden spatulas. And then like silicone like baking sheets and stuff like that, you can just buy like a cast iron thing. That's what I do now, and I just like bake my stuff in that, like a cast iron tray thing. And obviously, like, never heat your food in plastic containers in the microwave. Like microwavable containers are made out of plastic, never ever. And like, you know, those rice bags that are plastic that you are supposed to boil them in, never ever ever. No thank you. And then obviously, like, if you have like Tupperware and stuff like that and cutlery, make sure that's not plastic. Like now I've swapped out, I just recycle glass jars and I use those as my Tupperware instead of like plastic Tupperware. And one important thing to point out is that bioplastic is still plastic and still releases microplastic. So even if the plastic is made out of cornstarch or something, it's still plastic, so it's still releasing microplastics. Isn't that great? So then the next thing is personal care products. So the way to avoid microplastic in like your skincare and stuff like that is to buy like certified organic personal care products, because then they aren't allowed to do that. Because microplastic is like a very cheap carrier, and then there's like rules and regulations if it's certified organic. If it's just clean, then probably, but not certain. So certified organic is always best. Unless you can read like every single ingredient, then non-certified organic is okay too, but then it's probably certified organic. So if it's just like one ingredient, like castor oil or something, then there's no microplastics, right? And then with clothing, obviously buy like microplastic free clothing that's 100% natural fiber. So for example, my like quarter zip is made from 100% certified organic cotton, and it's super super soft. You would think that it's like synthetic, but it's not. And my sweatpants and everything, like almost everything, all of the clothing for my small business is all microplastic free. We have only just some baby tees that have some elastane in them, but the rest is like but for the rest it's certified organic cotton, so natural fibers. But everything else of our clothing is microplastic free. So anytime you're washing clothing, you're releasing microplastic if it's made out of synthetic fibers. Now you can curb this. If you are washing clothing made out of synthetic fibers, you can use a washing, like a special, there's like this patented special washing bag that you can buy that like removes, or like it catches the microplastics. so it doesn't go into the water and then you have to like remove it and like throw it away. I got one of those. And then, oh my gosh, you know, I obviously have pretty long hair and you're supposed to, and I don't have straight hair as you can see, so you're supposed to use like microfiber towels and stuff, right? That's pure plastic. Why would I put plastic on my wet hair? Is that then going to absorb plastic into my scalp? I don't know, but I don't want that. So what I do now is I just use one of my t-shirts from my small business that's 100% certified organic cotton, and I use that as a towel for my hair now. It's much gentler anyway, and it works really well, and it's super light too, so it's like the perfect equivalent to like a microfiber towel. And obviously other towels that you're like rubbing on your body, make sure they're like 100% natural fibers, so 100% cotton or something like that. Oh my god, your like bed sheets, like make sure you're not sleeping in plastic. I can't tell you, every time I've looked at like bed sheets, they're always like polyester, and I'm like, who the fuck wants to sleep in plastic? So get natural fiber bed sheets. It's more breathable and better for you anyway. But get ones that are made out of like 100% cotton or 100% like you can get ones made out of bamboo or like lyocell or like natural fibers that are not plastic. Bed sheets. Toys and condoms. So there are toys that are made out of like glass. I don't know if they're recommendable, but it's not plastic, and obviously you can just like not use toys. And then with condoms, you can buy ones that are made out of like 100% just like natural rubber, and so instead of them being made out of plastic, they're made out of like rubber is like from a tree, so that's a natural fiber. And the same thing then with like menstrual products like cups and discs. Usually they're made out of silicone, which is plastic, and then you're putting plastic into your body. But you have to seek it out, but you can buy ones that are made out of, again, like rubber. So then it's not plastic. And they're the same with the condoms, like the cups and stuff, they're exactly the same, they look the same and everything. I mean, almost the same, but they're still cups, you know? So what have I skipped? Toothbrush. So what I've found out is that there are toothbrush heads that where the bristles, when the head thing is made out of bamboo and the bristles are made out of like bioplastic, so it's still plastic, but it's like made out of like castor oil. So I thought that's hopefully better, right? That being said, you can buy like a handheld bamboo toothbrush, and the bristles are, I think, bamboo too, so that's even more like non-synthetic, but then you don't have an electric toothbrush. And same thing obviously with toothpaste, you can get a natural certified organic toothpaste. With toothpaste, that's a whole different topic, we have to make a different episode about that. Teeth, next episode. So then another thing is how you can really reduce your microplastic consumption is what you eat. Because like we said, like obviously like you're not drinking, you can reduce how much microplastic you drink by not drinking out of plastic, but we're still releasing plastic into our water, and that's then still in our water that we give to our animals, and it's in like the fish in the sea, right? And if you probably learned about bioaccumulation in biology. In case you didn't, then the biochem student will tell you what bioaccumulation is, which is like obviously we have like a food chain, like at the bottom are like the plants, and then the higher we go, the like bigger the animals are, and then we are kind of like at the top of the food chain. We shouldn't really be, but we are, because we have guns and stuff and we can kill anything. And so at the bottom are plants, right? And so anything that our plants have, the food chain above that has, right? So the animals that eat the plants. And then anything that eats the animals that eat the animals that eat the plants have everything from those two bottom tiers, right? And then anything that eats the animals that eat the animals that eat the animals that eat the plants has all of that. So it bioaccumulates, it keeps getting more and more. And then the animals that eat the animals that eat the animals that eat the animals that eat the plants have everything from those bottom tiers all together. And then the top tier has everything, is eating those animals that eat the animals that eat the animals that eat the animals that eat the plants. So everything bioaccumulates. So the higher you go in the food chain, the more microplastics. So the lower you can eat in the food chain, the less microplastic consumption. And there's research on this as well, that shows this. Like an easy way to lower your microplastic consumption is to eat more plant-based. Now, if you go to my social media, I post quite a bit about like plant-based eating and stuff like that. It's actually very easy. But you can just, there's so many replacement products nowadays, but I don't really eat those. But just eat more plants. There's like 15,000 edible plants, and there's only like 5 animal products. So it's really very easy. Just eat like whole grains and like beans, split peas, chickpeas, lentils, nuts, seeds, vegetables, fruits. Like there's, eat to your heart's content and just eat more plants. And then one way that you can actually remove microplastics from your environment, which has made me very enthusiastic about doing this, which is great, is hoovering. So I hoover today, and I've been hoovering very enthusiastically since I learned that that's a way to effectively remove microplastics from your environment. And then one thing I hadn't touched on is like if you're washing things, obviously don't use like a plastic sponge and then on your like food stuff. Also don't use plastic sponges on your face, and just use like, and for example, if I'm like cleaning things, I use like 100% cotton thing to clean instead of one of those microfiber things. Oh, and I even got like ones made out of bamboo that look the same as those like microfiber things, but they're made out of bamboo. So if I'm like literally washing wet stuff, then I'm doing that. So yeah, those were lots of where the microplastic comes from and lots of ways to reduce your microplastic consumption. I hope you liked this episode, and make sure you stay tuned for the next one. And reminder to check out my small business Vervie for microplastic free clothing, like athleisure, that's not made out of plastic. And as you can see, it's like that teddy soft stuff, and it's specifically designed for women and people with chronic pain conditions. And I'll show you how deep the pockets are, but like half my arm goes in it, like literally half of my arm is in the pocket. That's how deep the pockets are. But so I hope this was helpful, and I would love to see you in the next episode.